It's building trust by saying, we can't do it this way, but what about this? And look, there's different schools of thought on this, and some compliance people are very much kind of like, that's not my position, that's not what I should be doing. It's the company depends on me to say no. Well, I think we all have to recognize we're business partners. We should all be looking to help the business be profitable, to create revenue, and that being a strong compliance person and being product and revenue focused don't necessarily need to be kind of mutually exclusive. They can go in hand. So to my mind, it's very much a case of just seeing opportunities to help business partners, and that will generally kind of help develop the trust.
Blair Halliday is the head of UK for Gemini, who are the cryptocurrency exchange owned by the Winklevoss brothers of Facebook fame, if you've ever seen the movie Social Network. Blair and his team launched in the UK last year, and they are on the mission of increasing awareness and adoption across the UK and European markets. Blair is from a compliance background. He's originally from New Zealand. He actually started his career folding envelopes for RBS in an RBS branch in Scotland, bizarrely, but went on to have a very successful career at global financial services firms, and more recently with high-growth fintechs, helping them implement the correct governance so that they are compliant and ready for scale. Suffice to say, compliance is a big topic in the crypto space right now. So we talk about this. We talk about Dogecoin as being available on their platform. The criticisms of the energy consumption of the Bitcoin miners. We talk about that. Building and leading a new team in the UK amidst the pandemic in 2020, and also learning from the culture of the All Blacks. We talk about the book Legacy by Jim Kay, which is a classic, and what Blair has learned from that in terms of his leadership style. This one is particularly useful for anyone who is curious or skeptical about the digital asset space and how it's going to be regulated and subsequently become a bit more mainstream. I love this one. I think you'll take a lot of value from it. It's Blair Halliday. Blair, thank you so much for coming on the Tech Leaders podcast. How are you today?
I'm very well, thanks. Thanks for having me on. Delighted to be here.
No, absolutely. No problem at all. We had a great chat, probably going towards the beginning of the year. And I think you were snowed under at the time. You hadn't long launched in the UK. And I know it's been a bit of a whirlwind since, and I'm looking forward to unpacking that. But for the guests who don't know too much about Gemini and know about about yourself, can you give us a little broad overview of your career from point of education to where you are now?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So, Blair Halliday, I'm the head of UK at Gemini. In terms of going back to education, buckle in. We're going a bit back here. As you can probably detect from my accent, I've got a little bit of everything. I'm a New Zealander by birth, lived in Australia, Scotland, and now England. So my accent certainly never had a chance. I actually finished high school in Scotland, and after finishing school, I took a role at the Royal Bank of Scotland, or latterly known as RBS, before they owned NatWest, or latterly became NatWest. And I actually started as a mail desk clerk. So for half of the day, I'd sort the mail for the debt recovery team, and the other half, I'd be preparing it for delivery. I guess I must have folded the letters well as I got promoted to what was called branch, but would now be known as kind of operations, and kind of learned how to process payments there within the branch team. And after that, I kind of moved into customer services, and then later into investigating financial crime, kind of following on into roles more recently. I really remember kind of when I was at RBS, it was an era that the contactless card payments were first being developed, and it was kind of then I started to really get an interest in kind of developing technology, but it was still really a kind of a niche product for RBS and some of the other banks that were starting to kind of roll that out. Right about the 2008, I really got a bit of a kind of a loss of faith in traditional banking as a result of the financial crisis. And I think everybody kind of had their own effect as a result of that, and I certainly kind of became more aware of the emerging areas of financial technology. One of the things that has always underpinned my career is, as I love personal awareness, and I once did something called Insights Discovery, which kind of gives you a little bit of an assessment on your personality type, the way you work in a conscious and unconscious way, and one of the best kind of bits of most truthful feedback I got was that I work best when the rules haven't been written yet. which probably validates that I've got an innate attraction to the frontiers of financial technologies that have yet to kind of develop. And I like to think it's a compliment, but who knows? But after my RBS days, I went into a variety of different leadership roles at different fintechs in the payment space, and then a couple of years back, I first got into crypto through compliance at Circle, and and with that, I was fascinated and still am by how regulation was firmly on the agenda, and consensus was starting to form around how that would drive the industry forward and allow crypto to develop its and really reach its full potential. And with that in mind, there are a few companies in the space that are really trying to do things properly, and with a long-term view. On the impact of their actions, and Gemini, when I joined, about 18 months ago, to me has always kind of represented the real gold standard in the industry, from the standpoint of how they're trying to be pioneers and actually creating a sustainable proposition within the kind of the realms of understanding what regulators expect as well. So that's probably a bit of a whistle stop tour of how I went from folding envelopes to working in crypto.
That's a great story, and I was going to say the only place that your accent hasn't been influenced by the sounds of it, is Wales, because you sound to have been everywhere else.
Well, I've been to Wales a few times, but so I guess it must be close. But yeah, absolutely. But that's another one to add to the list.
No, absolutely. So, talk us through that period of getting the job with Gemini. Then you were obviously the head of compliance at Circle. Talk us about that period of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, we're all kind of naturally kind of in these roles for a period of time, and once you start to kind of get used to or kind of start making headway, and it's natural that especially in somewhere like crypto, where it hasn't been around all that long, and there is a kind of a dearth and good quality candidates, even if I do say so myself, that kind of understand not just the compliance space but also the crypto space, and so I was approached, as you say, I was approached about the role, and the whole period kind of took a little bit of time, but initially, I wasn't necessarily kind of looking for other roles, but I was certainly interested and attracted by the opportunity, and I've never spoken at that point to Tyler or Cameron, but obviously I'd heard a lot about them, and so I was fascinated to kind of learn more. And the thing that really kind of drove me with Gemini was just the caliber of people that I was meeting on a daily basis, in terms of the interviews and all the rest of it. The caliber from a capability perspective, the caliber from a just a general decency perspective, and the kind of people you want to work with, and so just it just kind of very quickly went from this sounds like a really interesting opportunity, or this is the kind of company I'd love to work for, to I absolutely must get this job and I must work with these people, and this will set me up terrifically. And with all that in mind, initially I was working in the compliance function as the chief compliance officer for Europe, and working for Noah, who was Noah Perlman, who's the global chief compliance officer, and now as the head of UK, and still working for Noah, and his transition also to the chief operating officer of the company. So it kind of one of the great things as well. It helps to demonstrate just how important compliance is to the company, as a foundation pillar, but also how important compliance is to be able to operate as a business. Compliance has really moved on enormously from computer says no, tropes. It really is a business function that requires you to understand a multitude of different aspects of the business, and Gemini kind of recognizes that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a couple of things there I really want to come back to, Blair. Okay, certainly the compliance stuff you mentioned about doing things properly, and also you talked about the amount of talent you were working with on a daily basis at Gemini. Now, I think that's the situation across a lot of crypto, centric organizations. The amount of talent flying into this space is really exciting, isn't it? And that's probably one of the most valuable things about it. But let's come back to that. I want to talk a little bit more about the milestones in your career. Obviously, this was a big milestone. Obviously, when you had the call to look at this opportunity with Gemini. But what are the key milestones in your career stand out as being sort of turning points and set you on this path?
Look, I think there's a few, and it's kind of just looking back and kind of piecing the dots together, as it were. But I think the ones that kind of jump out: the decision to join RBS in the first instance, the decision to I was working for RBS, living in Scotland, and the decision to move to London, the decision to join PaySafe, which was my first role outside of RBS. And the decision to get into crypto individually stand out as the decisions that have probably had the most impact. And kind of unraveling those, RBS, helped to give me a financial services education that's probably underpinned my career. And I know, and I know there'll be lots of different views on RBS, and certainly on the back of what happened in 2008. But when I first started at RBS, it was an institution really going up to the right. Prior to the acquisition of NatWest, that it was definitely starting to make significant headway, and it was a really interesting, and it was great to be part of it as well. It felt like it was going somewhere, and to be frank, at that time it definitely was. Moving to London was probably the first time I went out of my comfort zone. I'd been on my own. I'd been in Scotland. I went to university up there, and I'd taken the plunge to come to London. But I actually started at RBS down here as a teller at Camden Town branch. So and living in London, working as a branch member of staff, it's not a high salary. It's challenging, but you've just got to kind of hang in there and get the best out of London on what is a limited budget. And then
that's the best lesson you can have. Is that is the school of hard knocks, isn't it? The early part of your career,
It is. And Camden in the mid 2000s was a pretty interesting place to be working as well. But a lot of fun. And then kind of more recently, jumping to PaySafe after RBS kind of gave me it got me out of being institutionalized, as it were, as just being RBS member of staff. It gave me the confidence that I could exist outside of that bubble, and that my skills are transferable. And then moving to crypto, it's just been a whirlwind of a ride. Surrounded by amazing people, as we've kind of said, and they're terrific, and they all generally have a common goal of delivering to the masses the opportunities that crypto represents. But I think what's kind of underpinned them all is the importance of perseverance and and not giving up and not questioning or expecting that it's just going to happen either. It's throughout my career, there's been many failed interviews, potentially missed opportunities, decisions made which you kind of look back and you kind of wonder why did I do that, or what did I choose as path. But the importance of just persevering, trusting your ability, and keeping on going is kind of led me to the point where I am now. And generally there isn't a golden ticket. You've got to take the path that is available, take the opportunities when they come, learn from your mistakes, because there will be many, and you've just got to keep on going. And if you do that, you'll give yourself every opportunity. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's always going to happen for everybody, but persevering is a key component to success.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. And I think that every single successful person I've interviewed has said a version of that, for sure. And I wanted to ask you about something quite specific. You seem like a very calming, and you seem to do you like to do things properly. I get that from your character, okay, and that kind of makes sense.
I'm like a duck though, underwater. My legs are going like crazy. I just can't see them.
Don't worry about it. Mine always are. But yeah, I think what I was going to say in terms of like your career path, you've obviously gone down this road of compliance, and I just wanted to ask you, because you're working with probably quite creative, talented entrepreneurs who have probably got a bag of ideas. Most of them will be rubbish, but they'll have that one idea which is incredible. And I'm sure that might have been the case of PaySafe, Cashflows, Circle, very disruptive companies. And you're kind of coming to them and sort of saying, well, you want to basically put governance on their radar and then subsequent compliance. So you're basically taking the wild beast and trying to tame them a little bit to make them, an organization which is, have got the infrastructure to scale, because you need governance to do these things, don't you? You need to be compliant. Talk us through the sort of Blair Halliday playbook of dealing with the very creative entrepreneur types, except really product led, and obviously you need to come in with this compliance mindset and implement it into the culture of these organizations.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I think when it comes to this, it's kind of important to kind of recognize that compliance shouldn't be a computer says no kind of situation. Be it financial crime or regulation or governance or whatever else. It's really important for compliance to recognize. It's important to kind of stop the business from making significant mistakes in the eyes of the regulators, but also to recognize that it has an opportunity to receive new ideas, new products, new services, and to refine them into a way that is going to make them more successful over a longer period of time. An old colleague of mine used to use a really good analogy that he's never seen a Ferrari he'd like to buy that doesn't have brakes. And whilst when I generally doubt that he will be buying a Ferrari anytime soon, the mantra is correct. It's anything that is of that kind of value and that opportunity, it needs to have some degree of control there that actually keeps it going for longer. And I think every company that that has a great opportunity, that is developing really great products, really needs to have a vibrant compliance partner in there to help give a different opinion on something, give an opportunity or development or an area it might improve on to make it last longer, to keep it off the radar of the regulator from a negative perspective, to give it more legs. And I think that's pretty much the playbook I've always kind of felt is the compliance shouldn't just be a dead end. It should be a case. There may be some times where you just can't proceed with something at all. And I'm not saying that isn't the case, and because there are some, but more often than not, it's building trust by saying we can't do it this way, but what about this? And I really think and look, there's different schools of thought on this, and some compliance people are very much kind of like, that's not my position, that's not what I should be doing. It's the company depends on me to say no. Well, I think we all have to recognize we're business partners. We should all be, looking to help the business be profitable, to create revenue, and that being a strong compliance person and being kind of product and revenue focused, don't necessarily need to be kind of mutually exclusive. They can go in hand. So I guess that, to my mind, it's very much a case of just seeing opportunities to help business partners, and that will generally kind of help develop the trust.
You touched on something there which is quite prominent for me. I've spoken about this a couple of times with previous guests, and we were talking about the cultural difference between the sort of old generation, larger corporate organizations and these new technology-led organizations who are sort of, started up in the last sort of 15, 20 years. And it seems like these smaller organizations, by design, have to have a team full of people who are going to muck in and pull their sleeves up and get on with anything. Whereas these older world organizations are the people in organizations, because they're cogs in a much bigger wheel. They're very, that's not my job, this is my job, I'm inch wide, mile deep sort of thing. You know what I mean? How did you find that cultural difference? Because I noticed you worked for like JP Morgan, who was sort of a behemoth company, and then you've worked for pretty much disruptive smaller tech firms since then. Would you say that's the kind of cultural difference that you saw there? Is that true in your sort of experience, Blair?
Yeah, look, I think you're right, and I think when it comes to smaller orgs, be it kind of PaySafe when I was there and other such things, I think compared to like the RBSs and the JP Morgans, one of the things I felt at JP Morgan was, it's such an enormous company that take myself out of it. Does the company keep on running? Do I add any value? In reality, it's questionable. You've got hundreds of thousands of people that just keep that cog running along, and I'm not really adding any value. And smaller organizations, you're absolutely right. I think if you just want to be stick within your lane, stick within the process, just deliver that, then that's fine. And I'm sure that there will be some roles available to you. But the reality is that there is more expected of you, that there will be, with more expectation becomes more opportunity. And the reality is that, you are going to have to kind of, get outside of your lane, get outside of your comfort box, do things that aren't drilled down in a process manual. You're going to have to be, it's going to be a little bit more elaborate and a little bit more exposure than just literally following a tick box exercise right the way through. So I would 100% agree with that. I think in crypto as an environment is rapidly changing, evolving all of the time. And so the idea that there is a playbook that it's just ready to roll out, isn't the truth. It's we're constantly evolving to provide the best technology, the best service, the best offering, but we're also recognizing that as a company we're 6-7 years old, and there are many things that we're developing, in contrast to some other industries that have been around for hundreds of years.
Thank you for tuning in. I just want to take this opportunity to thank some of our friends. Firstly, all-round tech PR superstars Nelson Bostock. Whether you're an established technology brand or a fast-growing fintech, you need the right team behind you, a team that understands your brand, your purpose, your goals, and can really help you define your narrative and tell your story, the story that matters. These guys tick all of those boxes and more. You can find them at nelsonbostock.com. That's Nelson Bostock, the CK on the end.com. Highly recommended. I also want to thank Tramshed Tech. We've come down here and they've kindly allowed us to use their world-class recording studio facility down here. But they do office space, they do events. I can't recommend them enough. That's Tramshed Tech. And also a big shout out to Be Digital, who make all this possible. Be Digital enable organizations to become lean, agile, and to attract the right talent. That's bedigitaluk.com. Talk us through your role at Gemini then. I know obviously we touched upon the compliance stuff, but you're the head of UK essentially then, yeah? And I can see what, I think it's probably a very good strategic play, and making someone from a very strong compliance background leading this. I think it says a lot about Gemini's endeavor to sort of cross this bridge between institutions and the sort of this new emerging monetary system, if you like. But obviously Gemini want to basically enable a safe passage between each, so everyone has access to this incredible new asset class, I suppose, or classes. So talk us through your part in the Gemini vision and what you're working on right now.
So as I say, I'm the head of UK at Gemini, and we've been in the UK for more or less a year or so, but fully live for the last 6 months, probably 7 months now. And the offering for the UK is we obviously have a retail app and web exchange, where you and I and anyone watching this can buy crypto, as well as store it, as well as a full set of institutional services and tools that various financial institutions can use to invest in crypto on behalf of their clients. And look, as you said at the start, certainly when Gemini's founders, Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss, first got into crypto, it was the Wild West, and they wanted to create a regulated, easy, and safe way to buy and sell and store crypto and Bitcoin. And with that kind of in mind, they actually didn't open the company up to operate until they got their New York Trust license, which is one of the oldest regulatory banking frameworks, which was and remains a first for crypto companies. And our expansion into the UK and further into Europe kind of does reflect Gemini's ethos of asking for permission and proactively working with authorities and some of the most stringent regulatory systems in the world. And for the UK in particular, we started here with our e-money institution license and our crypto asset registration from the FCA, and we remain, I'd say one of 3 firms, because we actually have 2 of the 4 authorized as to date, to get the crypto asset registration permanently from the FCA, and I appreciate no doubt there will be more to come. And kind of all of that kind of underpins, our view that in order for crypto to really fulfill its potential, and whether it's in areas like improving economic efficiency, productivity, and outcomes, as well as promoting financial inclusion. There certainly needs to be a concerted effort and focus on regulation, safety, and security surrounding customers' digital assets, funds, and data. And that'll always kind of remain a kind of a hallmark of Gemini as a company, and certainly ours within the UK. And in terms of the kind of things that we're focusing on right now, we've just recently launched Dogecoin, which is our latest coin to go live, and we're all really excited by that. And there's a lot of fun that the marketing teams are going to have in terms of the promoting of that. And without getting into too much of that, because that is definitely their bag. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing a lot of on that side of things. And and in general, we're rolling out more and more coins. I think, when I joined, we had a very kind of limited number of coins. We're very much kind of focused on the Bitcoin and the Bitcoin forks, and now I want to say we're in the 40s in terms of the number of coins that we're offering on a variety of different kind of trajectories, be it ERC tokens or DeFi or just traditional Bitcoin and Bitcoin forks. So I think naturally what we're really focusing on is continuing to get the Gemini message out there, and making our platform even more interesting, not just for the for people that are new to crypto and want to kind of get on board, but also for those that have a little bit more legacied, have a kind of a broader understanding, and kind of want a little bit more broader offering in terms of the coin offerings that they're looking for their exchange.
There's a load of things you covered there, which I want to come back to, but I specifically wanted to ask you, for the listeners who don't know, Gemini was founded by the Winklevoss twins, who are essentially the rowers of the Social Network film, who basically obviously were involved in the formation of Facebook back in the day. They were on that movie, and then they've since gone on to set up Gemini and become massive advocates of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general, and now obviously run one of the most successful exchanges and crypto companies in the world. Obviously, that's where Blair's coming from here. So I wanted to talk to you, the Winklevoss twins. They're big characters. They do a lot of media, seem to be inspirational visionaries. What's it like working for those guys?
Amazing. I'm massive fans of them both. As I said, when I was first exploring working at Gemini, I was aware of them, and look, they've got a terrific presence, be it on Twitter and elsewhere, and they're great advocates for the long-term benefit of Bitcoin. But until you meet them and speak to them, it's kind of difficult to know what kind of personalities they are. I say behind the off camera, but the first time I met them was on a Google Hangout call. So, but I have met them face to face, so they do know what I look like. But in all seriousness, they're absolutely terrific guys. Very inspirational. Very, it's really enjoy working for them. They're incredibly humble, very down to earth, very open to to taking on new ideas, and I think that's one of the reasons why Gemini is successful and will continue to be successful. They don't know absolutely everything. They're prepared to allow others to kind of chime in and come up with ideas, and everyone kind of works together on that. But I've got nothing but the highest of praise for them both, with the exception of the fact they rode for Oxford, and this house is very much a Cambridge house. But all jokes aside, and we obviously sponsored the boat race just over a month ago, and Cambridge won both, and thankfully, they were not too disappointed about that. But in all seriousness, they're really, really good guys, great to work for, and I think I really kind of value, the kind of message they're putting out there. I think they're really, really positive for the industry. And I think the way that they've conducted themselves on, I think it was on CNBC, on Squawk Box, whatever it was, about a month or so ago, around about that GameStop time. They were terrific, and they really, in the face of some very challenging questioning. I thought they were really, really positive, and really impressive. So I've got a lot of time for them. I think they're really great guys.
Yeah, Peter McCormack I listened to them the other day on the What Bitcoin Did podcast, and talking about tough questioning. He was asking them really, really in-depth questions about compliance and so on and so forth, and mass adoption. And then he just chucked in the middle. So, what baseball team do you guys support? And just like a random, and it's just it was quite funny. But what I was going to say about that interview was, I think they were talking about very much this vision of being this, being this bridge for not only retail investors who don't know much about crypto, to educate them and to see crypto as maybe Bitcoin, but also other cryptos as something they can invest in as a pension idea, or as something, just as a savings account, but also institutions as well. And I want to ask you about this, Blair, because this is kind of your bag, isn't it? What is the sort of narrative? You're going to get institutional investment is coming, isn't it? It's already there in the States. We're seeing BlackRock have got in with some of their portfolio, one of the biggest investment funds in the world, and we've seen corporate money coming in from MicroStrategy has been the one well publicized one. The most publicized one has been Elon Musk. How do you sell this narrative of putting money into crypto through Gemini generally? What's your sort of pitch to them?
I think it's a very wide narrative. I think it's like what we talked about. I talked about a little bit earlier on about when the Winklevoss twins first got into crypto, it was a very different space to where it is now. And if you look at a variety of different things, we've kind of moved away from this. Every time you go on to this publication or that publication, some kind of negative news story about crypto and one for Wild West, money laundering, et cetera, et cetera. It's always the same.
Silk Road.
Yeah,
that's
exactly,
the one I only get thrown at.
Yeah, no, right, exactly. And look, and I'm not trying to kind of underplay those, but those kind of stories have shifted to the opportunities of crypto. And we always talk about and laugh about the Jamie Dimon situation of his messaging has softened substantially over the last kind of few years.
Well, that's a polite way of putting it. It's completely
exactly.
U-turn. I think is more accurate.
Exactly. The mother load of a handbrake turn. And so it's a lot of things like that. And Tyler and Cameron obviously did their publication several months ago now about the potential like 500,000 valuation of Bitcoin. JP Morgan did their 140K. I think what I would say, so there's a lot of kind of good news stuff happening there, and then you've got the price. The price of Bitcoin continue. We're talking about Bitcoin. Other Ethereum and other coins are obviously available and interesting to people, but still a lot of the the awareness of crypto is Bitcoin. It's hard to extrapolate from the two, and the price of Bitcoin has gone up enormously. And so not only is there a softening in the verbiage and the tone, but there's also there is a demonstrable interest there and a return on investment opportunity. And now, so you've got those kind of opportunity, you've got softening verbiage, and you've also got the regulatory component. We have regulatory coverage now in the UK that firms are required to register with the FCA, so you can trust in that AML component. That firms must demonstrate that they have a rigid and robust AML program before they'll get approved by the FCA. And so as I said before, there's 4 firms that have got that approval. We have 2 of them just through business construct, and other firms will no doubt eventually get their registration on a permanent basis. But they, when firms talk to us, they know they're talking to a firm that has got their approval now, and they can have confidence in that, as well as all of the stuff that we've done over the last 6-7 years, which is our firm is built upon strong foundations of security, compliance, licensing, and product. And so with all of these kind of things all coming together, it's that perfect storm, as it were, or that kind of manifestation now, where they can trust in us. They have there's a definitive interest in Bitcoin as a growing asset class. The market cap grows, it's grown enormously, and so I think it's just a whole bunch of things where the opportunity is there, and now that there is a value proposition to match up.
But surely you just show them a chart of the fact that it's gone up 200% year on year for 10 years without fail, and surely that's enough to convince anyone. But you'd think,
I'm sure it helps.
But I obviously there is still a perception of risk there for the reasons you explained at the beginning. Okay, so this time last year, Blair, okay, let's talk about Bitcoin because that's the leader asset here. It wasn't this time last year, it was just over a year ago. I remember it. I think Bitcoin tapped sort of $5,500, okay, which was the lowest it'd been in ages. And fast forward 12, 14 months, and it's tapping $60,000. That's a 10x, pretty much, nearly a 10x, over a 10x growth curve sort of thing. So what happened in 2020? And we all know COVID happened, but was there what were the key moments for the crypto market going on this bull run, or whether it is a bull run we can maybe discuss afterwards. But why did it explode last year?
Well, I mean, apart from obviously Gemini getting its EMI and crypto asset registrations, which I'm sure are
That's what it was. I knew it was something
inextricably linked. So
Yeah.
everyone, you're all welcome.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, look, I think there are a variety of different things. I think in terms of there was a continuation of kind of macroeconomic uncertainty. I think you're right. The lockdowns just continually kind of occurred. I think there was a concern on the not so much the fiscal policy, but the way the country was going to be able to pay for all the stimulus packages that were being implemented. People potentially had a little bit more disposable income because they were not able to go out and do anything, and they wanted to ensure the value of the money that they held remained true. I think it's difficult to kind of put a finger on all of it. I think it's, generally speaking, though, I think it's an evolution on products and services as well. I think the interest in crypto was always there, but let's be honest, it wasn't always easy to buy crypto. You might know the company you want to buy with, but debit cards weren't necessarily available as a purchase opportunity. It wasn't always easy to kind of make that payment through your bank. But I think there's kind of an evolution in terms of the products and services and the ability to on-ramp and off-ramp and the kind of companies that people would want to do business with. And and I think there's a lot of that, as I said before, about the developing and softening narratives. I think it's a variety of different things were all coming together very kind of nicely, and institutions were kind of getting more involved and starting to see opportunities. And I think it's largely down to nobody genuinely felt that the price point that it was at was a genuine price. And look, I'm not an investment advisor, so I'm not going to say that the price is what I think it is or not. But I think it was clearly undervalued. People were starting to see the opportunity there, and both retail and institutional saw the opportunity, and now we continue to run on. But it's a variety of opportunity, narrative, and products and services that make it meaningful and interesting for both retail and institutional customers to get into the space, and capable for them to get onto the space as well.
Yeah, I think an enormous moment for Bitcoin was the Michael Saylor MicroStrategy thing. I mean, that was an enormous leap of faith. And for the listeners who don't know about that, Michael Saylor is the CEO of NASDAQ. I think NASDAQ listed software provider in the US called MicroStrategy, the 30-year-old company, something like that. And they had $100 million sitting on the balance sheet, which he described as a melting ice cube because of low interest rates, et cetera, and was looking for an asset class to put the money into in order to sort of grow grow the money and put it into Bitcoin. And his justification, and he's a rocket scientist by trade, Blair, I think, isn't he? I think you've heard him speak. And his justification for doing it is, anyone who wants to learn about Bitcoin, I mean, I would definitely recommend starting there with one of his talks in terms of how he justified buying all that Bitcoin and putting it in on the balance sheet, and then also selling it to the to the investors of MicroStrategy. It was a pretty the journey. Him talking about that journey was a really I think it was clearly a big moment for Bitcoin, and I think it gave confidence to other investors, other big entities, hedge funds, etc. And ultimately, I think if MicroStrategy didn't happen, potentially Elon Musk wouldn't have happened, and BlackRock may not have happened, and so on and so forth. So I think that was the first big play. How are you seeing much corporate interest Have you seen it, over the last, like, since this year so far? Have you seen a lot of corporate interest?
No, absolutely. Look, we're, it's across the board. It's a lot of retail interest, but certainly a lot of institutional interest, and that from a variety of different institutions. And also just kind of tapping in a variety of different ways. Be it through just traditional looking to from a custody perspective, or kind of other products and services as well. But yeah, look, I think. I think a lot of firms, are seeing the opportunity that crypto provides. It's either a kind of a diversification of their treasury, or just simply as a kind of another investment opportunity. We fully continue that to fully expect to see that continue. But yeah, 100% institutional growth, has been a really interesting byproduct of all of this. And we've recently hired some more business development stuff for the UK, and the interest coming inbound to them has been really exciting and really interesting to see. So I fully expect that to continue.
So, Blair, let's talk about energy and Bitcoin then. So, it's been in the press recently. There's been a lot of FUD, as they call it, as a result of Elon Musk, and then obviously the China thing. So, what's your take on the recent energy criticisms of specifically Bitcoin mining? Is it all hype, or should crypto investors be concerned?
Yeah, look, I think in terms of kind of energy consumption, it's definitely an industry-wide issue, and rightly so. And it's been firmly on the agenda, I think, of any credible company trying to build a sustainable crypto platform for some time. And look, it is something that all companies across the digital economy, whether that is in financial services or technology, should be looking at too. And of course, the issue relating to crypto specifically has been pushed forward into the mainstream headlines by Elon Musk announcing that Tesla will no longer accept cryptocurrency as a method of payment, due to increasing use of fossil fuels, etc. We won't necessarily go into enormous detail on that comment. But I think in terms of the key thing to note about the comment as well, or the announcement, I should say, was that somewhat less reported in the headlines is that he did express a belief that this problem will be solved, and that mining will transition into using more sustainable sources of energy, at which point Tesla will resume the transactions. And further to that, I think the industry response, which there's been some kind of outward points, but I think at this point it's probably mostly this behind the scenes. It suggests that this has indeed been recognised, as somewhat as an issue that can and will be solved. And companies like ours at Gemini are certainly laser focused on being part of that solution, and very much at the forefront. The fact is that the more we apply blockchain technology to our daily lives, whether in financial services or in the art world, the better understanding we have of its impact, including the overall energy consumption that is needed to run various blockchain projects. And look, I think we're beyond the point at which the debate focuses on whether this energy is worth spending, given the enormous benefits crypto can bring beyond being an asset to be traded and invested in. In consideration of how it can increase financial inclusion, provide an alternative monetary system to millions of people living in countries suffering from hyperinflation or capital controls from erroneous government behavior. We're at the point where we know crypto is here to stay, and we're looking to better understand the energy usage, the impacts, and now the industry is very actively looking at finding realistic solutions. So, look, in summary, I think we'll start to see the concrete responses to this very soon from companies across the sector. We're starting to see bits and pieces of that. And in that sense, I believe that while we would never want to underplay the size of this issue, or oversell the progress that has been made so far, I think investors should be reassured that this has been taken very seriously.
And in terms of regulation, then, do you think sustainable mining is something that they'll be looking for? I've heard some people use the term green coins and things like that, or having some sort of certification around mining practices from where coins were mined or whatever, or having some provenance around how certain coins were mined. going forward. That is, obviously, we can't do anything about the ones that have already been mined. Do you think there's any mileage in that, and do you think it's something that regulators will look at in the future?
Yeah, look broadly. I mean, one of the key issues, whether it's regulators or if institutions or consumers, yeah, is to encourage nuanced conversations about the energy consumption of Bitcoin and crypto, kind of more broadly, in the context of the energy consumption of the internet and the financial system as a whole. And look, if there is going to be a view of zeroing in on Bitcoin in particular as energy usage, it should take into account what it can, does, and will contribute in terms of efficiencies, savings, prosperity, privacy, inclusion, productivity to the financial system, as a whole. And I guess my basic point here is that we need to look at it in the context of the net benefits and efficiencies the technology contributes, especially if there is a regulatory angle on this. And look, another of the issues here is that there is a level of transparency in crypto that enables consumption to be measured, which means it is easier to flag as a problem. The existing financial system and consumer technology industry also contributes hugely to climate change. It's just far more opaque. Um, any regulations should also take into account that the technology and underlying processes will change over time. Ethereum 2.0, which is the second iteration of the Ethereum network, rather, will, for example, use a zero carbon consensus mechanism known as proof of stake. Without getting too technical, and the fact that these networks and miner algorithms are upgradable, and granted, not all of them will be, does what change the argument or help? It certainly in the future will start to shift that argument a little bit more. Um, Bringing it a little bit more locally. And Gemini, Gemini, we work very proactively with regulators and engage on them on a whole wide range of issues. And we're of the view, kind of, be it whatever, the thoughtful regulation will be critical to achieving crypto's potential. Granted, a lot of the conversation to this point has been more about the usage safety from a financial services perspective. But part of that is by giving institutions and individuals comfort and assurances that large issues, whether security of funds and data or ESG concerns, are being met and considered. And I'm sure those discussions, with the regulators more broadly, will start to shift more, if not away from the existing topics, but more into kind of broader topics in the future. I'm sure that will be further down the line.
Were you quite surprised that the price didn't get impacted more by all this FUD, this FUD, as they say? We did have big drops, but price is still very strong. We're still up something, like 50% on what it was at the beginning of the year. I think something along them lines. So that shows how robust it is, I suppose, Blair, doesn't it?
The market has developed so much. We've moved enormously. I mean, this is we're 11 coming into 12 years old, and the development in that period, and the maturity, and just the amount of people involved and engaged and holding has grown exponentially over that time. I mean, the market capitalization has grown enormously, and so it doesn't surprise me. Look, Bitcoin definitely suffered, and all coins definitely suffered somewhat, but you're absolutely right. There's more to this than just a flippant comment suffers the whole thing to unravel enormously. There are people that have, there are a lot of people, and it's grown by the day, that have a real key understanding of the vision and the future that this helps underpin and support. So, did it surprise me? No. Did it make me happy? Yeah, I'm happy that it showed a little bit more robustness, but more still to come for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the energy thing. Okay, we've had price drops in the immediate term, but in the sort of longer term, this is probably going to have a positive effect, isn't it? I think because there's going to be more confidence in terms of the way bitcoins are mined. It's going to improve the industry, I suppose, isn't it? Which, because I know ESG is a big consideration for institutional investors, for example, and if we have got more sort of more of a handle on mining practices, I think we're going to see more institutions get in. Surely that's going to be a good thing for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And talking more broadly in terms of kind of, potential ESG measures and kind of more sustainable mining practices kind of going forward, I guess, in certain ways, the challenge to use alternative sources of energy for Bitcoin mining more broadly can arguably, as you say, represent a huge boost for the future of, of renewable energy. Um, and these issues are going to be solved by partnering with renewable energy sector, whether that is through offsetting carbon emissions or going through much further than that and actually using renewable energy to power the processes involved. And the majority of the energy used, we understand is by mining. Transactions and storing crypto use far less. Nevertheless, companies should have a broader insight into the energy consumption of all aspects of their crypto ecosystem and develop their plans accordingly. And at Gemini, we're exploring a very considered plan and bringing together all of the issues as we see them. And it's certainly a project I'm very personally supportive of, and again very personally engaged in because I see it. It's an area of enormous interest, and I will, myself and the rest of the leadership definitely see that is a key thing that Gemini should be at the on the front foot and a leader on. Kind of, we should look further than the impacts of the financial system applications of blockchain, though, because there are currently thousands of blockchains used for a variety of different things, and the carbon footprint for all of these varies. And if we take digital art known as Nifties or NFTs on the Ethereum network is one example, and to bring that a little bit closer to home, as part of Gemini, we have a platform called Nifty Gateway, and we've taken the decision to commit to Nifty Gateway becoming a carbon negative platform. And we fully acknowledge the growing concern from some regarding the carbon footprint of NFT, Nifty movement, and this area. Block space is consumed when artists' digital works are minted into the Ethereum network, and this process by which the digital art becomes part of the Ethereum blockchain. And while only 1% of all transactions on the Ethereum network are related to this type of NFT contract, and the entire Ethereum network itself only accounts for circa 0.02% of the world's total carbon footprint. We're certainly continuing assessing ways to increase our efficiency and use less block space. It's a major priority for us alongside our kind of more broader kind of clean green initiatives that we're looking at. And in terms of concrete things I can certainly share in relation to the Nifty Gateway, we're building a new minting system which will write about 99% less data to the blockchain, lowering the block space used during the minting process, and therefore lowering the amount of energy used. And we've taken the position to commit to estimating our total carbon footprint. And at the end of every month, we'll purchase offsets for 2x the amount of the carbon footprint Nifty Gateway has created from blockchain transactions that month. And thereby, in theory, Nifty Gateway will become a net remover of carbon. And we've also helped raise $6.5 million for charitable organisation, the Open Earth Foundation, via a digital arts auction called the Carbon Drop. And all of the proceeds from this will go towards the development of blockchain technology for climate accountability. And, there's a long way to go, but these are some of the very initial strategies that we have in place. And this is only in relation to Nifty Gateway, and a tremendous amount of work is going into solving the bigger scale issues relating to cryptocurrency more broadly. So a lot more to come.
For people who are unfamiliar with non-fungible tokens and the nifty stuff you're talking about here, would you be able to give us a layman's definition of what that is and how that has a future?
It is a token that, that is an asset that is held, I guess, in cryptocurrencies are just one of the aspects of assets that can be held on blockchain. and Nifty Gateway or NFTs. Nifty Gateway being the exchange that we have for the acquisition of Nifties is another, but it's a I guess it's an asset class of sort. But it's a way that people can have that token that can hold art in various different forms and have it for their own personal use. It's a really interesting kind of product, really interesting part. The evolution of the blockchain kind of crypto space. I'm definitely not the best person to kind of go into enormous detail on that. We acquired Nifty Gateway about a year or two ago.
Where can people find out about that?
Go onto our website, Gemini.com. Go onto Nifty Gateway, have a wee exploration on there, and they do drops, I think, every week or very regularly. Opportunities to buy and sell artwork that are available on there. It's very, very exciting, very interesting, taking the world by storm this year.
No, absolutely. So maybe let's move away from the crypto world just a little bit then. And I'm really keen to dig into your experience of essentially building a company in the UK during the coronavirus situation. I think we spoke quite early on in your journey when you were looking for your sort of leadership team and stuff like that. I believe that's all in place now and you're now in the process of building. How are you finding this new world of work? Most companies go in remote first or having a split between the two. What do you think is going to change for good as a result of this lockdown, Blair? Context of the world of work, obviously. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting because I think, naturally speaking, and I'm a product of that. We've always kind of gone to the centres of financial centres, city centres, where we expect the work to be. Be that Edinburgh, be it London, be it Cardiff, wherever in the UK. And I think the one thing that is definitely kind of really strongly coming out is the value that people have on work-life balance has always been a challenge, in any particular role. But I think one of the things that is very much kind of coming to the fore is people have seen the other side. They've seen what the opportunity looks like when you get to work from home or much closer to home, and you're removing that that travel into work every day, which if you live in London or wherever else, that could easily be 2 to 3 hours every day that you're commuting. And factor that in across the week. That's a hell of a lot of time that you could be, you could either be doing more work or spending more time with loved ones, or going to the beer garden, which is now going to be more readily available to people. And so I think with all of that, one of the things that that we're definitely having to understand is just the changing dynamic and how on how and where people want to work and how they want to engage. And naturally speaking, that is going to be, a company like ourselves, we laptops, very agile. We work, we don't have the same kind of bricks and mortar structure that a large banking institution will have, that will have, branches on every high street and all the rest of it. So we're a little bit more kind of agile and able to kind of adapt. But we still up until 18 months ago, an expectation that staff were going to be going into the office 5 days a week or more or less, and now we're kind of having to adapt to that, having to adapt to to new recruits that are interested in what our work from home strategy would be, what our policy will be after lockdown, all the rest of it. And so I think the really important thing is about understanding the market, understanding people's interests, understanding what people are kind of looking for, and what is the best way to make sure that you get the best talent, the strongest talent, and the people that are the right fit for you. And if you kind of rigidly kind of just say, I just want people that fit this box, that are going to turn up to an office, 5 days a week, 4 days a week, then you're probably going to suffer with the level of talent that you're going to attract. Because I feel like there is definitely a tide turning. And people just aren't looking at they don't not everyone wants to fit themselves in some tiny little box in London and spend £2,500-3,000 a month on it. People are kind of have got the opportunity to go a little bit further afield, and work is their work level and performance has remained very, very high, and so why wouldn't they be kind of interested in continuing that? And so I think it's going to be a challenge on places like London and kind of attracting people to go back into the centre. And I don't necessarily have all the answers on that, but I do think that we're seeing a real shift in what people are prepared to do as part of their kind of their workday life.
I completely agree. I think the culture of the workforce as a whole, I think, is shifting towards a more trusting sort of there's been a bit of a paradigm shift, isn't there? I mean, there was still a lot of companies operating on with the modus operandi, so to speak, of having everyone around sort of in the office, so the boss can keep an eye on them from 9 to 5 to make sure they're doing their job. Well, I think that prehistoric mentality is going to be gone as a result of this lockdown in many organizations, and we just need to trust people to have creative autonomy to achieve what they what they are supposed to achieve, and what they can to fulfill their potential on their own time, on their own terms. As long as they deliver the outcomes you want, then why would you care, Blair? Isn't it? As a leader, why would you care how they do it, or how they go about it, or when they do it? Surely.
Well, I agree, and I've had managers in the past that have that have a particular view on this, and they expect it to oversee, and they're micromanagers, and they're the kind of, and they don't get the outcome, the performance that they could necessarily get otherwise by giving a little bit of space, a little bit of distance. And I think, in fairness, we're learning about all of this. We're still developing it, and we'll get the right kind of balance all the way around, because there still needs to be how do you measure delivery? But I think the idea that you can only measure delivery by literally sitting in front of someone on a day-to-day basis is, I think that's gone.
No, I agree. Okay, I've got a couple of closing questions that I wanted to chuck at you. Firstly, what advice would you give to somebody who's quite nervous about investing in sort of, let's say, Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies generally? What would you say to those people about looking at this and giving a serious consideration as something they could potentially put their savings into?
Well, look, I mean, to categorize, this isn't my investment advice, but certainly my view on it is, look, there is a risk, in any form, to chasing very short-term gains, and so digital assets definitely have a really strong and valuable place as a long-term investment in diversified portfolios. And so, with all of that, and I've spoken to friends and family about this, and it's, the value to me is always in the hold. Look at digital assets as having, long-term vision, a long-term value, and that's where the real value and the real return will be. And I'd also advocate that. Look, I definitely don't advocate that people go beyond their means, and that kind of definitely kind of reverts back to the first point about looking to get short-term gains. You don't want to make decisions that could be challenging to you, and you need to kind of look at it on the basis of this is an investment for the longer term, and I'm able to cope without that money now and in the future, and kind of that's why it's really important to kind of if you're investing, have diversification in the portfolio. We expect them. We all see hope and expect the value to continue to rise, but looking at it short term will kind of impair your ability to really get the return that you're kind of looking for. Just generally have a balanced approach to the way you save, in the same way that you generally be balanced about traditional finance. And so, with that in mind, there's nothing unique to crypto about that.
Very sensible advice. I think that's duly noted. Thanks for that, Blair. And I can't let anybody leave the Tech Leaders podcast without giving us a book recommendation in the spirit of the podcast. What sort of book, documentary, piece of content have you has inspired you over the lockdown period or generally?
Yeah, I think the one that always come back to, and I'm probably missing out tons of really good books, but the one that, and this is kind of showing my New Zealand background now, is a book called Legacy by James Kerr, which talks about the All Blacks story, and particularly around how they kind of cultivated more recently a kind of a really strong culture. And culture is really important to me, and corporate culture is incredibly important. We're doing a lot of stuff at Gemini at the moment about building really positive environments and places where people can be open, transparent, and safe in a psychological sense. And the thing with Legacy is a book, it recognizes the failings of before, that there were, and I won't use the phrase they use, if it really can very quickly change the dynamic if you've got the wrong people in there. And it reads so true for sporting, and it certainly rings true for corporate environments. There are so many talented people out there that could do a good job, but having the right kind of personalities that all kind of bring each other along, that challenge in the right way and don't destroy confidence is so important. And that's a really big part of the way I look to hire people is how are you going to add value to everybody? And diversity, equality, inclusivity is a vital and part of all of that. It's about ensuring that we have a really strong, balanced corporate culture, and culture to me is critical. And diversity. Legacy is a book that I do go back to now and then, just to kind of, because I want to leave one day I'll no doubt leave Gemini, and I want to ensure that I pass on the baton in a really strong way to the next person. But so Legacy is probably the one that I'd reach out on.
That's a fantastic answer, Blair. I mean, I think the point you're talking about there, I think the way they phrased it in the book wasn't it leave the jersey in a better place than where it was? You know what I mean? So you're taking, even if you're taking the 7 shirt off the great Richie McCaw, you'd still aim to make it an even better jersey type thing. And I think it's an incredible book. And I love the one as well. And this is consistent with people I've heard who've been around the All Blacks, is when they leave changing rooms after games, they always sweep the changing rooms and they're very respectful to the staff. And it's just this culture of respect is not only in amongst the players and the coaching staff, it's actually for everybody who's around the periphery of them and everyone they meet in everyday life. And it's very similar to what Alex Ferguson advocated with the Man United team as well. It's this culture of respect and professionalism. It's very powerful. But yeah, it's a great book, Legacy by Jim Kay. I would recommend that as well. It's a brilliant choice. Fantastic. Blair, I've really enjoyed this one. I could talk to you all day about crypto stuff and that, but it's been a really enjoyable conversation. So thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks a lot. I had a great time. Really appreciate being invited on.
If you enjoyed and took value from the show, then don't forget to subscribe, and also feel free to leave a review. We would really appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening.